Last week on Project Jigsaw, we spent some time banding aluminum tubing to build the rear end, but we have a bit of a problem.
We need to properly locate this in its home. Right now, it's just kind of hanging out in the neighborhood.
Will you be my neighbor, Tony?
So first step to get this where it needs to be is get the stuff out of the way that is where this needs to be. Air cleaner and coolant tank.
Yep, what he said. So right now our biggest challenge, we have this aligned over the strut tower, which is where it's supposed to be. The biggest challenge is this piece up here, which Tony adjusted a little bit to get it around our tubing. We realized when we did our 3D scan and everything else, we didn't account for the tubing thickness as well. So whereas the inside edge here is fine, there's still the thickness of the tubing that's hitting the roll bar. So what we need to do is get rid of this. So that means we're going back in the jig.
We're gonna put this back in the jig. That way all these tubes are in their proper location when we add the new support.
He walks away and it falls off.
You were supposed to support it.
I was putting a zip tie on.
You didn't bring me any.
Well,
did you bring enough for the whole class?
You just needed to hold it in place. That was a zip tie. You had the easy job of just chilling.
I can't do that.
You just gotta chill, Tony, alright? Today's sponsor is Chill Pill.
From the makers of Triactin.
From the makers of Triactin. Now, we're not gonna be doing this for every single piece of tubing on the car, because that just wouldn't make sense. But since we're cutting out a major structural component, we need to do this. Otherwise it won't align correctly, then we get a really bad buildup of tolerances. This video has been paid for and sponsored by FlexiSpot. This is the E7 Plus 4-leg standing desk. They call it a standing desk because of the press of a button, I can stand and work. The E7 Plus can support up to 540 pounds of weight. That's a lot. Even at a standing height, this desk is incredibly stable. Alternating between standing and sitting when working is more ergonomic. It helps to correct posture, and different postures are best suited for different tasks. Standing desks also promote better concentration and are helpful for thinking and creativity. And one of my favorite parts about the standing desk is when I'm tired of standing, all I do is hit a button, sit down, the desk comes down, and I don't have to reset my project. FlexiSpot also carries this overhead garage storage rack, which we think is pretty neat. Unlock more savings by using the exclusive promo code provided in the description. Click the link down below to find out more. Thanks to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to work. Feels pretty solid. Get another spot right here while I'm at it.
That's true.
Look at that. I think we're single-handedly keeping the zip tie business in business, because we're just using zip ties and snipping them off over and over and over again. Don't put a lot of twisty pressure in here when we pull this out. Oh. Apparently one tack was not enough to hold this on.
After we took everything else loose?
Yeah, so we're gonna have to go through more zip ties and load it back on. There you go, right there.
We can probably just use me instead of a zip tie.
Yep.
Once we've taken it out, it makes sense. This is just really floppy. It's not going to hold its shape. This obviously also doesn't have much to hold its position. So we're going to need to tie this together somehow. We just want to do it in a way where this isn't interfering with our roll bar supports. We got to add some structure.
Time to wake up, Tony.
Yep.
Time to go to school.
Time to order parts.
There we go. We're almost there. Top side fits. Last piece we need to deal with is the transmission here. This full hoop, we designed it not having transmission in the car. Now it's in the way. So we're gonna cut out the center here and have a little notch that goes around the transmission that gives us some wiggle room to move it in place. And whether or not that stays will be determined later.
Back to temporary.
It'd be a shame if I tripped right now and it's all collapsed. Keep that from falling off the table. Does not need to be pretty, it's just for jigging purposes. 2
years from now, where it'll be like, man, maybe we should have made that look a little bit better. So we're getting a lot closer. If you look at the back side of this, you can see that it needs to come this way. But we're hitting on the stud for the air cleaner in the center of the carburetor with this one tiny little tube. So I'm gonna pop that out and that'll get us one step closer. I could have grabbed a real wrench. Now we got plenty of room.
Yeah, it's a good thing I made that wider in the back because the transmission is offset.
Yep. Should be able to space this up a little bit so it's not contacting on the shock towers, because right now you can see, I mean, we're right on there.
Yeah, so both sides are like that.
We can come up a little bit because we want to.
We need to.
Yep.
We don't just want to, we need to.
Yep.
Now we're getting somewhere. So the tubing is now floating kind of close to where it should be. What we need to do is what we did in the front of the car, which is make these pads that will locate it permanently in place. So if we were to set the tubing down, we'd have a pad here that has like a little cup that this can set into. So you take it on or off, it'll stay there. It'll also make sure that the tubing is not bending or flexing any which way, because all the pads will be the exact distance they need to be from the structural points of the car that are fixed locations that measure correctly. That was a mouthful.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think that was a sentence.
All that to say, we just need little sockets to locate the tubing. Let's figure that out next. So this is the bushing that we had for the front hinge of the front clamshell. I'm gonna modify it quick so that I can put a notch into it and we can use it to space our rear clamshell. I think it's about the right height. The idea is to have a straight edge run from here and sit on top of the tubing here, because it's gonna be as thin as a piece of aluminum. You guys like when I say aluminum, don't you?
No, they don't.
Sorry. As thin as a piece of aluminum.
I'm sorry, I started
Aluminum.
So we found a few exhaust clamps. We don't use a lot of these around here, but they were back in the stash. I think that'll work perfectly. We can just slide this up and down to raise or lower this once this is at one set height. Why do I want to cut that in half when I can cut this, and then I'm still gonna have to cut it to length?
That's fine, you can do what you want.
This guy. Yeah,
That's fine.
I'm going to.
I think it's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to. Where's the slag hammer?
I don't know, Tony, find it yourself.
Okay. It's my slag hammer, what'd you do with it?
We're having a disagreement about how this should be made, so I'm making it at the same time while I wait for him anyway. Let's see if I can beat him. I already finished my pieces.
So as we slide the clamp up, this tubing will also go up. Or if we need it to come down, we just slide the clamp down.
Yeah, now we can jig it exactly where it needs to be and keep it repeatable.
Good thing we have 1 5/8 inch clamps and 1 1/2 inch tubing. Just enough room for a zip tie to fit in there.
Last week, we were invited to the Eastwood Summer Classic. We drove the slant nose down, saw a bunch of really cool cars, met a bunch of you guys as well, and had a blast. We also put on a metal shaping demonstration for everyone at the show. It was a good time, and thanks for having us out in Eastwood. Take a look at that beautiful power hammer. However, we were able to find in the sea of cars in one of the lots, a Porsche Boxster.
387.
Yeah, so we gotta go to the right a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Tony's giving me crap because I keep saying it's a hand-built car. Nothing's gonna be 100% perfect. I'm not copping out, I'm being realistic here. We'll be here for like a year just trying to line this tubing if we're trying to make it perfect.
Like everything, there's a balance. Yep. How far do we want to go? Goldilocks. That's it. I think we're at about
I think we're just right now.
Yep, that's Goldilocks.
The tubing is sitting on the car. It's centered. We had to tweak the back a little bit to level it out. But our measurements came out good. So what's next? Goldilocks.
We need something that's going to lock it in this position because it's still not locked. We can tighten the nuts on those top brackets. We need to do something at the back brackets so that we can lock it in.
Zip ties?
Well, let's start with that. I got a zip tie for you, buddy.
Those are the largest zip ties I've ever seen. What do you have those for, Tony?
I don't tell you where I keep them or what I use them for, Ryan.
I'm gonna wake up in the back of a van down by the river one of these days, zip tied, and I'm gonna know why then. So in the front of the car, we have, a little bit of wheel gap. The wheels aren't completely flush, which you think is kind of reminiscent of the 1960s, which is what we're going for. In the back, however, you'll notice that we have excessive wheel gap. That is because we are planning to space the wheels out even further, temporarily until we get wheels made. We don't need spacers. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. So what we're about to do right now is not something you should do for a car that's driving on the road or driving at all. This is purely for mock-up. We're gonna be stacking a good bit of spacers. Don't tell on us, please.
Hand hammer?
Yeah, it's the best hammer. You keep it on you at all times.
What are you gonna do when they wear out?
We've already been over this. I'm gonna be first in line for robotic arms when you can just get them like electively and affordably.
I've already hired a hacker to hack into your robotic arms, and I'm going to mess with you so bad.
But that's the thing though, I'm gonna be a hacker with robotic arms. Is that spinning that wheel on you?
Yeah.
Is that annoying?
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is like hard mode.
Hard mode's nothing for me.
Monster truck.
There we go. Much less than a hand now.
So the plan is to get custom wheels built for the car. They're the right offset and everything, so we don't have to worry about wheel spacers. But the kicker is, we may make custom wheels of our own design, like from scratch, not just buy off the shelf wheels. We'll see. Is it in the budget, Tony?
What budget?
In terms of money, we have no money.
While we have a lot of spacer on here, a lot of that was just because these are Panamera wheels, and that's what we needed to clear the strut. In the end, the offset isn't going to be that crazy, and it's going to work really well in the suspension.
So now that the tubing is fully located, and we have this segment done, we have the front to deal with, and we have the back to deal with, because this is going to go extended out further back. And here, well, we have stuff in the way.
Yeah, this body, it's obvious that the new body is going to run into this. So let's get this out of the way.
And I'm not worried about being structural anymore because it's no longer structural, and we're not going to be using the Porsche doors. We're going to be making our own doors, and yeah, that's a problem for later. But for right now is we need to get this out of the way, and we're going to cut back as much of this Boxster as possible so it's not really a Boxster anymore. We don't want you guys to think it's a Boxster when you look at it. And this is a pretty key feature. And honestly, I think a lot of people like to see me hit, so.
That's probably true. There's probably a lot of people that would live vicariously through that. But if you give me 50 bucks, I'll hit Ryan.
It's Crucible Coachworks at gmail.com is their PayPal.
I think I'm just gonna start here.
Just try not to cut the inner structure. So on a Boxster, you have the outer rocker here, which is thin gauge steel. It's not doing a whole lot. But the inside, there's an inner rocker. And that is important and high strength steel, and we don't want to touch that as much as possible. If you look down inside there, you can see someone actually used a stud welder and pulled damage out. It's a little dark, but there's damage that was done to this Boxster.
And there's the body filter
I think we actually should talk about that for a moment. This Boxster came to us in very, 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 very poor shape. Cosmetically, it was a wreck. The top was trash. The engine blown up. So this is the perfect candidate for what we're doing right now. We're not, ruining a running and driving Boxster that was great. Nothing of value was lost when we decided to chop it up. Actually, we're finding value in it right now, in the bones. We're like
we're bringing it back.
The Native Americans using every single bit of the bison. Uptown girl. I know you're not even done yet, but that looks so much better.
Yeah, much cleaner.
We should have done that from the beginning. We weren't sure if we're gonna use the striker or not. We're now not. It looks so much better.
Yep. I'd always rather leave it in there and cut it out later.
Can we just take this whole skin off, you think?
Yeah, probably.
I think we should. I don't think there's any reason to keep it.
Trying not to hit those wires.
Sketchy there, but buddy.
Trying to not hit those wires.
Yeah, we need those. Nice. Look, Tony didn't cut the pile of wires or anything over here. That's a win because I was a little nervous about that. Were you nervous about that?
I wasn't nervous about it, but I was very conscious of it. And we got them out of the trunk, so we haven't cut any of this wiring out because we're not sure how much we're going to use, but I was tired of it.
That's the chassis wiring that's like from the Boxster. We piggybacked into it to get the car running.
And we'll probably use more of it as we move forward.
So we don't want to get rid of all of it yet. So we're going to stuff it behind the seat where it's not ugly.
And speaking of not ugly.
Yeah, look at all the space now we have. We still got to cut this off.
Yep.
But the rocker skin is no longer there. There's a lot more room for this hip to be able to flow down where it's supposed to go, and we can go to a door. I know many of you have been wondering like what we're going to do with the door for this, if we're going to use a Porsche door or not. We already talked about that earlier. We're not using the Boxster door, so we're going to make our own doors from scratch, which would be fun because there's a lot of layers to making a door. And one of the things that are important is crash safety. Like the striker that was here originally is part of like crash safety because the door has a crash beam through it from the hinges to the striker. So we're thinking we'll probably end up doing is tying the striker into the actual main roll hoop somehow, and then back to the chassis. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but
yep,
that's the loose idea right now.
We have a concept, we gotta come up with a plan.
Yeah, so, that should be safe enough for what we're doing. I mean, you think about like a roll cage, a full cage.
A door striker tied into a roll cage, yeah, that's safe enough.
Yeah, that's plenty safe. It's probably safer than it was originally.
Yeah, more than you could hope for.
And the doors are gonna be fun because we'll have to make them out of tubing and have a crash beam inside of them and potentially a window that goes up and down and such.
Window that goes up and down would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're probably not gonna have AC in this. Unless we retrofit like electric AC that's like separate, but...
Number one, 1960s,
yeah.
and number two, AC's overrated, so...
No, that's not true at all.
Yeah, AC's overrated.
AC. This is gonna be a target top. So like this part here is gonna be removable. We'll have plenty of airflow with the windows down and the top off.
Actually, there's nothing here, so we should say this part will be installable. You'll be able to install the top here.
Yeah, exactly. You have on a 914, right? A Porsche 914 is a target top. You remove the top, you can put it in the trunk. It fits. As long as your luggage isn't in the way.
And the old 911s, the top you would take off and you would actually collapse it because it was vinyl, and then you put it in the front trunk.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have much trunk.
We're going to figure out what we're gonna do for a target top.
So it took some time, a lot of careful measuring, some really calibrated eyeballs, but we've got this located exactly where it needs to be, and that was absolutely the first step that we had to take, so we have a foundation for building all the rest of our tubing, which happens to be what we're going to do next. We are going to build all of the tubing for the rest of the car before we start skinning it. That way we can make sure everything ties together, flows together, our doors work, our clamshell works, nothing's gonna run into it before we start making sheet metal for it. So we got all this cut out of the way. That way we can make our doors. Our doors are going to be working, at least working shells, before we start doing any more aluminum sheet metal on the outside of this car.
I am stoked at how the rear end's shaping up and where we're headed. Thanks for watching this week, guys. We'll catch you next week for more Project Jigsaw. Thanks for hanging out in the shop with us.